All right, kids, here we are. It's another episode of the 10-minute round. This is kind of a big deal because usually I don't have the stamina to last 10 minutes, but here we are. We're going to try to do 10 minutes on the main event of UFC 309.
Can I get a call? Yeah!
But I'm going to give you a little spoiler. By the end of this video, I'm going to pick Stipe Miocic to win this fight.
I was like, oh!
So we finally have made it to Stipe Miocic versus Jon Jones for the heavyweight title. Feels like it's taken forever to get here. I mean, we used to talk about Jon Jones like this.
If I'm Jon Jones and I'm home watching this fight, I start moving to 85.
And now we talk about Jon Jones like this.
Absolutely, positively the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Probably the greatest fighter of all time in any sport.
And it seems like a lot of the talk about Jon Jones is why isn't he fighting this guy?
Have you ever been fingered by an MMA fighter before?
Fingered?
Yeah, fingered.
So it makes you start to wonder, is anybody asking Stipe Miocic?
Hey, are you still there?
So I'm going to start off with like the intangible reasons as to why I think Stipe is going to win this fight. A big one for me is the fact that everybody is asking Jon what comes next. What is after this fight? It's not so much, hey, what do you think about this fight against Stipe? It's what comes next? Are you fighting Tom Aspinall? Are you retiring? Are you fighting Alex Pereira? Historically, looking past a fighter is just such a red flag for a fight. Like planning what's next before dealing with the guy in front of you, it's never a good idea. The main reason, though, as to why I'm picking Stipe is looking at the betting odds. The betting odds are absolutely absurd. There's some spots that have Jon almost like a 9-1 favorite. They have Stipe Miocic as a plus like 450. I'm going to tell you right now, I would definitely take Stipe in this fight at plus 450. There is no value on betting on Jon. At most, he should be like a 3-1 favorite. This is insane. It is insane that the odds are so spread apart. Why are the odds so spread apart? I think the main reason why the odds are so spread apart, I mean, besides from like all this talk about Dana White and like getting locked in a room with Jon Jones.
When you talk about who's the baddest dude in the world, you put two guys in a room and who walks out? Jon Jones walks out of the fucking room every time.
Is this idea of like inactivity on Stipe's behalf. But both guys have only had one fight in the past 4 years. Jon's fight was a 2-minute affair. He spent 2 minutes at heavyweight, beating a guy who has almost negative wrestling. He went to the Stephen Hawking School of Wrestling. Stipe hasn't lost against Francis, but Francis is one of the scariest heavyweights that we've ever seen. Not to mention, both guys, this is basically both guys' like second training camp against each other. The first one coming last year because this fight was supposed to take place in November of last year. But since then, Jon has been rehabbing a shoulder injury. He tore his labrum. That's why the fight didn't go down last year. Stipe had no such injury. Stipe has not had to rehabilitate anything. He's only had one thing on his mind in the past year, and that is Jon Jones. His coaches have been strategizing to beat Jon Jones for a year. I am sure that they've basically spent this entire time figuring out how to beat Jon Jones, because a win against Jon Jones would be the biggest feather in his cap possible. Now, I'm not saying that beating Jon Jones is going to be easy. Jon Jones is considered one of the greatest fighters that we have ever seen for a reason. He probably has the highest fight IQ that we've ever seen in combat sports. Match that up with like his physical attributes, with his wingspan. He knows how to use his physical gifts to his advantage. He can fight somebody from a range where they can't reach him. And once they do get close, once they close that distance, if they get too close, he is able to take people down at will. He is so creative in there. You know, his elbows are nasty. His ground and pound is nasty. His ability to throw a submission up is all nasty. Match that with like this supreme will to win. Anytime Jon Jones has been seemingly down in a fight, he really finds a way to pull it out. We've seen it time and time again. He's not going to be somebody who's just going to lay down and let you beat him. One thing that I do think that has played to Jon's advantage in his career at 205 is that it used to be considered the UFC's premier division, and because of that, you had a lot of guys that could have been fighting at middleweight that chose to fight at 205 instead because there was more accolades for fighting at 205. He beat guys that were like legends, but were also pretty small. Lyoto Machida fought at middleweight. Vitor Belfort, middleweight. Shogun Rua could have been a middleweight. Rashad Evans, middleweight. Chael Sonnen, middleweight. You get the point, right? When he had to fight guys that were closer to his size, Alexander Gustafsson, we'll even throw DC in there. When he fought like guys like Dominic Reyes, it didn't look so easy. His last 3 fights at light heavyweight, he did not look great. We saw Jon Jones look human. He arguably lost that fight against Dominic Reyes. A lot of people, not named, the 3 judges at ringside, thought that Jon Jones lost the fight against Dominic Reyes. The fight against Thiago Santos blew out both knees in the first round. Still took Jon 5 rounds, still won some of those rounds. His fight against Anthony Smith, we've seen Anthony Smith's career play out. I don't consider Anthony Smith an elite fighter, but he still took Jon 5 rounds, even though he lost every round. So I think that a lot of recency bias, a lot of this like lock Jon Jones in a room with somebody, is the reason why Jon is such a heavy favorite. I think if we look at the reality of things, we've seen Jon decline in his career. Even though he still won those fights, he wasn't as impressive as he used to be. On the other hand, you have Stipe Miocic, who is, quote unquote, the heavyweight GOAT. You look at his resume, he also had wins over DC. I also think his win over Francis Ngannou is more impressive than anybody that Jon has beat in the past, 10 fights. Stipe has fought at heavyweight his entire career. He's beat some of the best guys at heavyweight for years now. Stipe's last 2 losses were also getting caught by probably the hardest puncher we've ever seen in MMA, in Francis Ngannou. And he also got knocked out by DC with like a surprise punch in the clinch. He's not really a guy who's out there losing by decision. I also think that Stipe is an absolute threat to finish Jon on the feet. I think Stipe has really, really surprising power in his hands. He used to be a Golden Glove boxing champ. He's finished a lot of great fighters with his boxing. And I think that if he's able to keep the fight kind of in a boxing range where he's not standing too far out on the outside, but he's also not too far on the inside to give Jon Jones like an ability to clinch, I think Stipe has a realistic shot of hurting Jon on the feet. I also think that Stipe is well aware of the opportunity that he has in front of him, and being so overlooked by everybody, by the odds, by everybody talking about like what's next for Jon Jones. That is the exact type of thing that is going to motivate a guy like Stipe Miocic. So he is coming out for blood in this fight. So at the odds of 450, I am willing to throw some money down on Stipe Miocic. I am willing to throw my rent money on Stipe Miocic winning this fight. There is a reason why he is considered one of the greatest heavyweights in UFC history in a division where it is so hard to put together any kind of win streak, especially at the championship level. So Stipe absolutely has a shot to beat Jon Jones this weekend. I'm going to throw some money on it. We'll see what happens. Obviously, this isn't a guarantee, so if you throw some money on him and he doesn't win, don't come looking at me. You're betting against one of the greatest fighters in history, so that's on you, buddy. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I'll probably do another one of these talking about Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira, maybe some of the other fights. The rest of the card is actually kind of weak, so I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, have a good one. Peace.